Good evening. Welcome to our Symposium recap webinar that's featuring our 2022 Entrepreneurship Awardee. It was my great pleasure over the course of 2021 to work with a committed group of amazing CSA members to establish both the criteria for this new CSA award, as well as to review the applications as they came in. We want to give many, many thanks to member Wendy Goldstein for initiating and sponsoring this award for entrepreneurship that's related to all things dress and costume. Our chosen awardee for the 2022 cycle is with us today. Please welcome Carol Huls of DittoForm, which is based here in the Detroit metro area. And she'll be speaking to us tonight about her business, which we found to be very fascinating.
Thank you, Leslie. It is an honor to be here. I am honored to have been the first awardee of this Entrepreneur Award, and I am just delighted to speak to you today.
Yeah, and Carol, this is great to get a second chance for me to get to look at your work and hear about your journey. Can you share with everyone a little bit about the path that you took to being a business owner?
Yes, my own journey to becoming a business owner is not a straightforward one. It's taken a lot of twists and turns. When I left college, I went to Calvin College, Michigan, and then went on to grad school at Eastern Illinois University. At the time, they had a program called the Historical Administration Program. It taught you to become a curator in a history museum or a director or some other position within a museum. And so I went through that program and became a curator at the State Historical Society in North Dakota. This was many moons ago. And then after that, family, personal situations changed, and I ended up in Denver. I was going to go to law school. I ended up working for a printing company. And then I moved to Washington, D.C., and I was going to get back in museums, but I took other jobs. Long story short, after several years of doing all kinds of different work, nonprofit, assistant work in corporate America, I ended up on a sort of self-imposed sabbatical. I left a job and I was turning 45 and it was a little bit of a midlife crisis. And so I was taking whatever job I could. And I ended up working in a sewing studio, super part-time, like 10 hours a week. And I was helping the owner with things like vacuuming the floor after classes and putting her website up, classes on her website, just little things like that, preparing class kits. And she was developing an amazing product as one of her second or third businesses at that point. So I was kind of in the right place at the right time when they needed help with that new business. I was able to join in, and they paid me to do the assembly work for DittoForms. And so that person, that class, actually I have a little slide here. It was Allison Lynn Bentley, and then her business partner, Mary Flynn, hopped in. And so they were the owners of the original DittoForm. And then after a while, after a few hard years, that was 2015, they decided they were ready to move on to different adventures. And so I wanted to move back to Michigan. And so I thought, well, why don't I buy the company? I like what I'm doing. I had no idea what I was doing buying a company, but I thought, what the heck? I'll just give it a try. If it doesn't work, at least I got home to Michigan, right? And it turns out it worked, and I really am having fun with it.
Cool. And, for those that might not have been at Symposium but are listening to us tonight, why don't you fill everyone in about what DittoForm actually is and why you're so passionate about this product?
Right. So Allison and her partner Mary were very interested in sewing. And so, quite simply, a DittoForm is a copy of a real person. So, copy, ditto, form, dress form. And it's a copy of a real person. So, we start with an image and we go from there. So, as we know, body doubles, mannequins are stand-ins when you're designing clothes or costumes. And so DittoForm is designed for people to fit their own bodies. And I just have a couple of slides here that show the difference between DittoForm and standard dress forms that you could get in stores, commercially, etc. So the thing that we do that's different is we capture the non-standard things about a person, their sloped shoulders, things like that, curves in different places, different skeletal structures. So the concept of using advanced technology to get to ditto form, custom dress form, isn't a new idea. A lot of people have had it. Allison and Mary just figured it out. They figured out what foam to use, what cover to put on it, just basically how to make it. And about the time that they were doing that, things were changing technology wise, so that the scanning technology, the 3D scan that it all starts with, that technology was more affordable. And so they took the technology and just ran with it. They figured the rest out, and then the rest is history, as they say. So there's some other examples of people trying to capture a realistic shape using different kinds of tech systems. So DittoForm uses the advanced technology. We start with a three-dimensional picture and carve from that virtual copy. We like to think of ourselves as a meeting point in between technology and craft. So up until a month ago, we used a system that had a platform, and you would stand on it and one single camera would capture you as you were rotated around. This year, starting in May, we have been using a handheld system. It's an Artec Eva, and it's able to capture even more detail. I think you can see on the slide there. The first one's great. The second one's even better. So we're very happy about that. Before, you had to be able to stand on a platform and be rotated. Now it doesn't matter. In fact, we can use this technology to scan things as well as people. So I could scan a chair or a person sitting in a chair. And so a lot of new things have been opened up to us. So the image is used to carve the physical figure. The foam is a cross-linked polyethylene, and it's covered with a matte gray jersey fabric. And when it's all ready, we send it on out to you. At the end of 2017, Allison and Mary were ready to move on to other projects, and I wanted to keep it going. I also wanted to be closer to family, and I have a very generous family. When I first moved back in 2018, I was in my sister's basement and as my workshop, and so I lived in her servants' quarters. This was in her basement. So after that, things were starting to go pretty well. Even I was learning what I was doing. In 2020, we had grown enough that I was able to afford my own shop, and kind of got my feet under me. Now we all know what happened then.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Carol, because I know that running a small business requires that you end up wearing many hats because of all the different business needs that can pull you in really different directions. So, talk to us about how the pandemic did affect your business plan, and kind of as a second part, because we've heard so much about that and I think it impacts all of us, is did supply chain issues, and what kind of supply chain issues hurt your progress once you were able to open back up again?
Yeah, it was an interesting time. I call it the great pause. Like I mentioned before, I'm not a business owner at the root core of me. I haven't been one all of my life. So I needed to learn a lot of things. And so I took advantage of the time to watch webinars and to read books and to connect with people. For a hot minute, we made masks to be able to support paying rent. But after that, when I sort of wrapped my head around what I needed to do, the first thing I needed to do was to connect with as many people as I could. In the Detroit area, there's a lot of mentors that are available through government programs or various different associations, from women's organizations to the Small Business Association of Michigan. And those proved to be really vital for me, because while I couldn't do sales at the level that I wanted to do at the beginning at all, and then towards the middle, I had to change the way that I got to my customers, then I needed some capital to keep me going. And fortunately, I was in the right place for all of that government money. I'm a woman business owner in Detroit, in manufacturing. And so it's a little bit of a sweet spot. And so I got every possible government grant that was available and a few loans. And that is what really saved me. The Small Business Association of Michigan, if you have something like that in your state, I highly recommend joining it. They were the ones who kept me tapped in to all of those things. I wouldn't have known about half of those programs without that association. So that's been really quite interesting. You asked about supply chain. I don't know if you know this, but in 2021, the world kind of ran out of glue. And so at one point, I wasn't able to get any spray glue at all. Between the shutdowns in Asia, a ship getting stuck in a canal, an ice storm that wiped out all of the refineries in Texas, remember that? Then there just wasn't any of the chemicals necessary to make the glue. And since it doesn't have a long shelf life, we ran out. Fortunately, that's come back, but it did kind of give me heart failure for a while. So that's been a challenge. And of course, now everything is double the price materials wise than it was before. In addition, labor costs everywhere have gone up. We could talk about that for days, about the reasons why, but it's really hard to find labor that is affordable, that is skilled labor.
Before we jump to our next plan question, I think it'd be interesting for people to hear from you why the foam carving in Michigan works, like in terms of your labor supply potential.
So, yes. So in Detroit, you might know about the auto industry is here. Along with that, there's a number of things that are things you might not normally think about. So in prototyping for automotive, they use foam to prototype what they're going to do. They use it in the manufacturing process to build the dashboards, to do all sorts of things. There are companies here that specialize in that sort of manufacturing. In addition, the furniture industry in Michigan feeds into that type of skill set. And then there's a company also in Detroit that's called the Parade Company, and they make floats, like the big floats, like for the big parades and things. And so with that, there's a number of ancillary businesses around the manufacture of stuff. And so it really is a great place to find skilled artisans that have skills in all kinds of different things.
Cool. Yeah, because I just think a lot of people, if they're not familiar with those invisible skilled people, that's a fascinating piece of this. I think from our conversations before, I know that most of your clients have been and continue to be makers. Do you want to share some of the way clients are using DittoForm?
Yes, absolutely. So the DittoForm itself, I often get asked if I will make clothing for people? And the answer is no. I make bodies. And so from the bodies, an individual will use it to make their own creations, whether that be garments or costumes or what have you. And so I provide a tool that they can use. So most of my customers are home sewists that are of all different kinds of levels, more on the expert level than the beginner. But if you learn how to sew with the dress form, then you really know you want one that's really great. So there's a variety of different applications here. Knitting, you need to have something that you know is going to work. Basically, it's a three-dimensional rendering for your pattern, so it makes it easy to see what's going on as far as where the wrinkles are and what you might want to fix in your next iteration of the pattern. If you have a garment you really, really love that's getting worn out, then you can try it on. The top right is the first go around, the bottom right is the second. You could use it to fit things, to fit your pattern directly to you and make sure it's going to stay up. In addition to, just pattern placement, all sorts of things. So that's the home sewers. There's also historical reenactors. They love this because they can put their corset on. And so when they're trying on things, they don't have to put the corset on, try the dress on, take the dress off, take the corset off, make the change, put the corset on, and so now they can see exactly what's going on here. And they can test where the collar is going to be, what that side thing is going to look like. And the foam is strong enough to be able to handle that. Here's a couple of different versions of bustles. This person made her corset, and so all of these fancy lines are things that I don't understand what they are, but they went directly into the making of this corset. The costumes that people are doing for cosplay, these are some extreme examples, but you can see why having your own body would be helpful to placement of things. Even testing out how to carry the weight of something. A lot of cosplay involves props of sorts, and so you can't make that out. That's not metal, right? That's something else that's been 3D printed. But to be able to figure out how to balance that weight on the back of a person is helpful to have another person to do that, especially one that's patient and will stand there for a long time. The talent on this is really amazing. So this Svan Melms does work in the armor sort of costuming, and he's able to fit the armor to himself. You can weld, that's not the right word, mold things on to the foam. It's heat resistant. And so a little quick 30-second little time lapse here of him doing his thing. He's duct taping onto it so he can take the duct tape off and make the pattern for his thing. He's going to build it all up here. Jump ahead a little bit. So he uses foam that's moldable. And where is it at that end? There he is. So he's made this white thing, armor plate from using that process. So it's pretty incredible. In addition to the amateur costumers, we have done a few costumes for famous people, celebrities, if you will, and probably the most famous one that I can talk about because it was written up in a magazine, Women's Wear Daily. It was right at the beginning of the pandemic. So Hollywood was doing all of these things to help save actors keep actors safe during the pandemic. And so the costume designer from the show Grace and Frankie that was on HBO, they contacted us to make body doubles for Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. So that was quite fun. Most of my customers are regular people. So
Carol, go back up In the historical reenactment one, to the slide where there's the back bustle, you had a
Yeah.
side view.
Yeah.
Because we have a question about if the form is squishy to put a corset on, and I know that it's not. It's more like a dress form, even though it's pinnable. But I'm pretty sure that person was scanned with a corset on, given
Yes.
the silhouette.
Yes. It does not squish in. So if your corset fits to your body without squishing you, not actually doing what a corset was designed to do, but if that's how you wear it, then this would work because it would frame you. If you're going to make a garment with like a wedding dress or a historical dress where you have a foundation garment that's holding you in place to hold things up, then you want to wear that garment when you have the DittoForm made, because otherwise it doesn't squish in. So I have met a lot of other really interesting people and have been developing relationships with online instructors. And so that's part of, what we'll be doing going forward. So,
Do you want to talk a little bit about what your plans are for like the next 5 years?
yeah, so there are two areas of growth that I'm focusing on, because the way the business is structured, we need to get the scan, the 3D scan, and then we need to make it. So the areas for improvement are, of course, in how we get to people, and how we could let them know that we exist. So the online instructors, of course, help with that. We've been going to conferences and conventions. That was a pre-pandemic technology. And then recently we have been traveling around. By we, I mean me. I've been driving around the country in my Jeep, going to people's homes and doing the scanning there, or in a local business that's amenable to partnering with us about that. In addition, we're going to be adding scanners around the country. We have two right now. One is based in Washington, D.C., and the other is based in Santa Rosa, California. Bonnie actually in California has a different business. She has her own size stream scanner, and she can make master patterns from the images that she gets. She can also make them from the images that I produce. So that's interesting for home sewers to be able to have. We're looking at expanding internationally also to get those scans done. Pre-pandemic, we were going to go do that, but of course I wasn't ready for that, and so that was great for a pause. On the research and development side for the production, we're going to be looking at arms and legs. So you can see behind me, the torso is amazing, but the sleeves for her arms just kind of hang there. So it'd be nice to have an actual arm in there rather than just the ones that you can make the tubes that look like arms. You just shove it in there. So if we could have an actual arm, actual legs to add onto the bottom. There's so many different challenges with that. I'm not even sure where to start. We're also looking at archival materials to be used for display. That's probably the most exciting thing, is that both for things like museums and private collections, for display in stores that want to show real people, being able to have archival material where something can stay on it for a long period of time and be protected is something we're looking into quite seriously. Of course, manufacturing techniques, right now our process involves a lot of manual labor. And if we can increase our robots to cut the foam in a different way, that would be amazing. Talked about getting the scan files differently. And sort of a side thing that we're doing is that we're working on collaborations with groups, women's groups, girls in particular, kids groups in general, to talk, encourage body positive or body neutral, how to be comfortable in your own skin, those sorts of programs. We're very interested in being involved in that.
Carol, Laurel was asking, I think we answered it, but maybe it deserves a little bit of a repeat. If you're in a different state, let's say, than either of your helpers, or from
Mhm.
Michigan, are you still traveling? Do they travel? How do you deal with that regional stuff?
Absolutely. So right now, on my schedule, if there's anyone in Salt Lake City that really is ready, let me know right away. I don't have a lot of customers signed up, so I might be canceling that trip. That would be in 1st of November. Um, Instead, I'll be going to YumaCon, which is a cosplay convention here in Detroit. So that should be fun. I'm going to be next week. I'll be in Baltimore at the American Sewing and Design Professionals meeting. And so I'll be in Baltimore for that. And then after that, it's a matter of checking my travel schedule. I have designed the routes based on interest. So if you were, for example, in Kansas and you wanted me to come to you, you would send me a note that said, please come to Kansas. And I would add you to the list of people in the middle part of the country, and I would arrange around that. I am setting the schedule for 2023, and I'm going to be targeting things in a different way rather than doing big loops and routes like I have in the past couple of years. I'll be able to fly with this equipment. It's smaller and can fit into an overhead compartment, and so it opens up the ability to go different places, different weekends, and be in more cities. So where I go is dependent on interest, and so please let me know where you are.
You want to say anything about these slides, your inspirational pieces you're putting up?
Right. So it goes along with that whole theory of being yourself. One of our mottos is be you, be the best you. We can help. um, because we're not telling you how to be, or we're not telling you how you are supposed to be, just telling you how you actually are. And sometimes people can't feel beautiful. It's just not part of their DNA to look in the mirror and feel beautiful. And reaching for that goal might be a little bit high. That's okay. If you can be comfortable with yourself as you are, then you're almost there. That's the battle. So you need to be happy who you are, and that helps you to be comfortable with what you wear. You don't have to conform to a standard, and I'm not in the school of, oh, that's right and that's wrong. Uh, but having your own body gives you the tool to dress the way you want to, comfortable, because you know how to deal with that extra slope shoulder, or where those rolls actually are. So whatever you want to do with them, you know where they are. So that is kind of how I've been going along here. I was clicking through to get to the website page. These two make me laugh a lot because DittoForm is a copy, and so I enjoy those. And I think the next slide yeah, there we go. There's the information for me and the phone number. And okay, so DittoForm, ditto, copy, form, dress form. So DittoForm, one word, will get you to the website, dittoform.com. And then if you're on Instagram, same thing, search for @DittoForm. On Facebook, you need to add an S, DittoForms, because it turns out, who knew, Pokemon has a character called DittoForm. And some kid in North Carolina snagged that years ago. And so just make sure it has the dress form and not a Pokemon character, and you'll find us on Facebook too.
I know that at Symposium there were quite a few questions from people in the museum area, and you and I have talked like a small collection like at Meadowbrook Mansion, where almost all the garments are the same size because they were from, the original owner. And when
Right.
they do a display, that means they have to have, 8, 10 figures that are all the same size to put the
Right.
dresses on. Where's your process in terms of thinking about those kinds of uses for a ditto form?
Right. So in the future, I hope to have a division that is specifically for situations like that, where the garment was a real person, was made for a real person who is no longer with us. And so if someone has already taken the trouble to do this current standards of building a museum quality mount for that person and it works, I can scan that existing mannequin and recreate it. At some point in the future, I'd like to be able to scan a flat garment and be able to recreate it three-dimensionally, and then we could make the person that way. That's possible. Not right now, in the future. Yeah, I think that answered your question, to be able to reproduce it. I actually can suggest some other questions that I usually get.
Sure. Yeah.
So one is probably the number one question is, what if you change size? So I would ask you a couple of questions based around that. Like, where is the question coming from? If you are under 25 years old, you're going to have to convince me that you really, really, really want one and really are going to use it. It's an investment product. And so between those of us who are older know that between 18 and 25, your body changes a lot. If you have children, that first child, all bets are off. So something's going to change. And then over time, your body will age, obviously. The body that you have at 25 is not going to be the body you have at 50. However, if you get one at 25, between 25 and 35, even though you might swing in your weight up and down, you're not going to change that much unless you're on a conscious journey to gain or lose a lot of weight. When you add a lot of weight, you change the way you stand. A few pounds here and there, depending on the size of your frame, you might see it in your clothes initially, but you're not going to make clothes or costumes for every single pound up and every single pound down. Your clothes are designed to fit you. Unless it's a really super fitted garment, then I want to think about that. But most of us, those fluctuations in weight do not, on a daily basis, don't affect the effectiveness of it. But like I said, if you're on a journey to lose a lot of weight, hang a picture of a DittoForm on your fridge, and it's motivation for you to do whatever it is to gain or lose weight, whichever your journey is.
So someone kind of connected to that is asking what the price range is for a form.
Yes, the retail price is $1,750. It's an investment. Like I mentioned before, the materials have gone up, and it's very labor intensive. We go from the 3D technology to the machining that carves it to the hand carving, and so it's really a quality product for as a tool to be used in your different creations.
Okay, Laurel's thanking you, says very interesting, and
Thank you.
I can second that, having seen Carol's shop and being able to put my hands on a DittoForm. They're eminently pinnable, which some of the forms you buy, I don't like to use too many names, but like the Dritz adjustable forms that many of the sewing chains sell are not eminently pinnable because the inner shell is pretty hard. This is flexible in that way. And as somebody who has my own asymmetries, I absolutely the advantage of being able to have a dress form that deals with your shoulder issues or your asymmetrical hips
Right.
is a great thing when you're doing stuff for yourself, or for if you were doing it for someone as a customer on a very regular basis to justify that cost. So
Yeah.
okay, well, I would like to thank everyone for attending. It looks like that's all of our questions. Yes, and there's a comment. It is perfect for TV, particularly the series that happens where there's got to be multiple fittings, and they certainly hope there's going to have multiple seasons. Most actors at that professional level do not change size very significantly. And so there is certainly, a market possibility there for that. Same as with opera. Actually, most of the big opera companies already go to people like Dress Right and the other commercial standard industry dress forms and have them custom made for many of the opera people, because the size ranges are so unique there.
Yes.
So yeah, that's another place in the entertainment world where the money is available to do things like that. So it'll be exciting to see where things go. And I know that now that you're linked into CSA, that we will see you,
Yes.
many times more. And I want to thank the CSA Awards Committee as well as the Entrepreneur Award team for all the work to make this whole process a reality. And for those that are listening, know that the next round of this award will be awarded in 2024, and the applications for submittal would be in the fall of 2023. So please, if you know entrepreneurs who have been in business for at least a year, and are doing something that's related to dress and costume, that they should look on the website for the submittal information. I think that's the website info is up on the slide now. And if some of you listening are not CSA members, I hope that you'll think about subscribing to our YouTube channel or even becoming a member of CSA, because there's certainly lots of interesting things that happen, and it's a great group of people to share in the passion of dress and all things connected to that. So thank you, Carol, and we'll say good night.
Thank you.